So we got half an hour to go through one of the greatest careers in rock and roll. So, gentlemen, forgive me if I feel like I'm rattling through, but we have to rattle through.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go chronologically through your career for a Simple Minds special, which is going to go out on Virgin Radio, and I'm honoured to do this. I really am.
Thanks.
So, and I want to start off actually in the here and now by asking, did you hear Bono's Desert Island Discs?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that intro. Very, really kind. We were aware of Bono's intro. He's been so beyond kind in the recent years, mentioning his like for Simple Minds, and what can we say? He's overly generous, but
well, I mean, it wasn't just a like. He referenced you as influencing U2 more than any other band, and he said, and I quote because I listened to it, I'm a huge fan of both of you, and he said, "You can hear the Simple Minds in U2." Isn't that a lovely?
I can't, but I mean that in the best way. It's so distant. It's a bit like when people maybe say, "Oh, your kid looks like you," and you go, "I don't see it" or something. But we're definitely of ilk in many other ways.
The largesse, the epic quality of the songwriting, of the feel.
Schoolmates, Celts.
Yeah. There you go.
Probably had the same record collections. Others in our generation would have been the same.
Well, if you were the inspiration for U2, who was the inspiration for you then?
Oh, well, there was so many. We had like, obviously, you know, bands like Roxy Music, The Doors, Velvet Underground, all that. You know, kind of of course, David Bowie, big one. You know, huge. But that kind of that sort of period really would have been the golden years for us.
Of course, yeah, you can definitely hear the rock and see the Roxy and feel the Roxy music.
Yeah, in our dreams, but that was it.
Well, because your dreams became reality. But let's take it right back to the beginning, and actually to the start of the wonderful documentary, which I've just finished. I came off air and I watched it, and my heart is soaring. You know,
that's lovely.
And there's all of this. There's very moving footage of Glasgow at the beginning.
Yeah.
So let's go right back to the beginning and to the city that shaped you.
Yeah.
And
the
how
city
it
we
shaped
love.
you.
The city we still love. Even people, well, you don't love there. You don't live there. You don't love it that much. When I say it's made us who we are, I don't mean in terms of Simple Minds necessarily, although obviously Simple Minds is something that grew out of us, but before that happened, we had to be born in a certain place and brought up with a certain kind of community and certain kind of people, and it just so happens that not only were Charlie and I born 10 minutes walk from each other, but later on in life, by the age of 8 years old, they were building these new housing schemes, projects, whatever you want to call it. And the first day my parents moved in, Mum said, "Get out of the way, go out and play." I was 8 years old, and there was other boys playing in the street, you know, and you can we play as well? And Charlie was one of the boys, and here we are all these years later talking to you, Ed. It's still, all roads lead to Rome.
My gosh, there's this lovely moment, I think near the end of the film, when they talk about you meeting in a sandpit, on a council estate sandpit. I can imagine you with your bucket in Spain.
Yeah, Charlie was king of the castle.
And so tell me about how the band formed and your fag packet coupon guitar.
Oh yeah, well I had we couldn't afford a guitar, really, and my mother, who was a heavy smoker, had saved up all these coupons from cigarettes, and she got me my first guitar. It was actually a cheese grater. It wasn't really a guitar. I mean, it really was, but it was called a Nymph, which was a great beginning name to have for a guitar. I mean, I've always wanted to call a guitar that after it, the Nymph.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, to be honest, I mean, Jim, when I could play 3 chords, Jim used to tell people I was the best guitar player in Glasgow, you know.
And Jim, you when the band sort of crystallized, you weren't even the singer, or did you see yourself as a singer? Or
No, I didn't dare. Well, I didn't dare even think. I mean, as much as I've always had a pretty potent imagination, you had more chance of being an astronaut. Or literally, you had more chance. The bookies, if there was odds on, you would have had the same odds. So we didn't know anyone that was in bands. So the idea of that, but I didn't know. But it's buying albums, and I was already going to concerts. The next stage was to be around people that could play music and made music, and I would still be happy to be Charlie's guitar roadie. In some ways, I am. Just to be around people that can this magic thing called music. So, I think I was good at kind of corralling things along.
Yeah.
And the guys, we were really classmates from school, and Charlie had guitar, and equally we'd a joint best pal, Tony Donald, who somehow got a bass, and we were away.
Yeah. So talk me through your first break, because I don't know how that, I can't remember how you got that first deal with. Was it Arista that what happened there?
I'll tell you a funny story about that. I mean, the first thing was really playing pubs and clubs, and it really happened very fast for Simple Minds in terms of we must have been good, because if you weren't good in Glasgow back then, and especially playing your own stuff, because the majority of bands played chart stuff and cover versions, so the idea of playing your own songs and people standing and cheering you on, before we knew it, there was literally crowds around the block when we were, albeit it was nothing to get in, but there was still crowds around the block. So word spread, and before we knew it, we were making demos, and I was hitchhiking to London and going round the record companies, and lo and behold, quite a few record companies were interested. But there was this one record label at the time, I think it's still going, Arista Records. It was owned by Clive Davis, the American label, but this was the English. And they had Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, and Patti Smith, which Charlie and I, we thought, that has to be the label.
Where do I sign?
Yeah.
Where do I sign? No matter, if Arista come in, that's who we're going with. Well, Arista came in, and the funny thing is, they invited me down to talk to them and see them. And I thought, I'm going to go into this house of Lou and Patti Smith, and they'd only one huge portrait on the, it was quite a plush record company. It was a portrait of Barry Manilow. And I realised he must be paying for all of this, because none of the rest really sell records.
Well, glad you didn't walk out the door at that point.
Well, exactly, but that's how it started, yeah.
And so let's put a timeline on this. So it's 1979, and we come to Life in a Day. And I'm so glad of the documentary, because I'd completely forgotten that it was John Leckie that you were thrown in with. This is pre-Stone Roses and Sawmill Studios and all that, John Leckie. You were ahead of the curve there. So talk me through that first single. It was actually the name of the album as well,
yes,
right?
That's right.
So yeah, let's talk about Life in a Day. Let's let the documentary do what the documentary does, and let's talk about the music. So I'm going to cherry pick almost through every album. Sure. So let's talk me through Life in a Day, the song.
The song, well, you know, Jim and I, the first album Jim and I wrote, and like all first albums, it was over a few years of just writing songs, and we did it in Abbey Road, the first album, you know, some of it, and with John, and you know, at the time, you know, we shouldn't have, because it was overawed. We were overawed to go into Abbey Road, and you know, I mean, young guys at that age, but the song, it was kind of, I think we had like, the second single was a stronger song, Chelsea Girl, but for some reason Life in a Day became a single. Can you remember why, Jim? Why did I get picked?
Well, it was pretty catchy, but I think the prototype for Simple Minds then, to give credit where it was due, I mean, we spoke about the early influences, Roxy Bowie and stuff, but there was a band called Magazine, and the early version of Ultravox with John Fox and stuff. That was Charlie and I. We hitchhiked through to Edinburgh from Glasgow to watch Magazine and all that. We were trying to be in that art rock, Roxy Bowie, post-punk, new wave, and I think Life in a Day pretty much hit the target there. I mean, looking back now, we sometimes still play it. We like to go back to the first songs, but the real break was the record. Neither the single nor the album was a hit, but the interesting thing, and this will sound arrogant, we got to tour with Magazine, and they're just brilliant. and we killed them every night.
It was John McGill, wasn't it? What a guitar player to
Fantastic.
be inspired by.
I've been listening to John recently in the last couple of weeks.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
But they were playing a kind of slow, moody record, and we were full of, energy and all that stuff, so we were going down a storm. And then, of course, we got this break, the famous then BBC music programme, the Old Grey Whistle Test. They had us on before we'd even played in England. So that was kind of a break. We were on the map.
Right. And it took you a while, a couple of albums to find yourselves, didn't it? And so we come, like I say, I'm rattling. We come to I Travel now. And this is where I, as a fan, come into the story. Because I hear that on John Peel, and I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. This is great. So I suddenly, you've got me, hook, line, and sinker at that point. And of course, travel was becoming an increasingly important thing in your lives. You were touring your nuts off, playing your dues. What were those years like?
They were the best years of our lives, really, because when we're still doing things for the first time, and when we got to the album that you're mentioning there, that I Travel, this album, Empires and Dance, whereas I was saying earlier that we were we're so heavily influenced, but by that record you're starting to grow something of your own out of your influences, and you're becoming Simple Minds. And the great thing about that period was that not dance music like we know dance music now, but we were playing this kind of rhythmic stuff that there was clubs and stuff playing electro disco or whatever it was called, and it was a kind of just bringing in the whole new romantics movement. Duran, first time we met the guys in Duran, I met them in EMI, and EMI were interested in us at the time, but I met Simon and John, and they said, your song I Travel, we play it all the time in the Run Runner Club and all that in Birmingham. And so there was that side of it. Simple Minds were, dare I say it, were becoming a bit fashionable. The critics liked it. They were playing it in discotheques, but we ourselves, we were out still travelling up and down Holland, Germany, Denmark, Norway, anywhere where we could play, really kind of working on the live aspect, still not having hits, but learning our trade.
Yeah, you weren't about the hits at that point, but you were you've always been about great songs. Now, so we come to 81 and Sons and Fascination, and is this when Richard Branson comes to the party?
Yes, that's right. We had the previous record company, Arista, had dropped us basically, and of course we were straddled with all this debt, and but we had done these demos, and then a friend at Virgin, Ross Stapleton, had Ross had really championed us in Virgin, and he managed to get. He said, "You need to sign this band," and Simon Draper, the managing director, and Richard came up to Glasgow on a Sunday afternoon, heard the demos and signed us instantly.
Fantastic.
I've got a feeling Richard's wife was from Glasgow, and I think she put a word in.
Yeah, maybe.
That's great. Behind every great man, eh?
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention Theme from Great Cities because it has such a huge soft spot in my heart. And also because, you mentioned about the crossover of dance music and rock music where you were at. You must have heard what Corporation of One did with that years later.
Yeah,
it was one
brilliant.
of the greatest house music records ever made.
Yeah.
And you must have smiled when you heard that.
Well, I always smile. That's it's arguably my favourite Simple Minds song, and there's no voice on it.
Well, there's Tony Montana from Scarface is the sample, and Queen and Freddie Mercury's on it as well.
Amazing song title, though. I'll take the credit for the title.
It's a great title. It's brilliant.
But,
It is.
The best move I did was I'm not going to sing on that. Let it speak for itself.
Well, it was Love Song that kind of solidified you in my mind in the alternative clubs that I was going to. I was into that sort of whole gothy, glammy, new romantic thing, and that was the song. So talk me through Love Song and how that crystallized.
Yeah.
Charlie?
No, go ahead, Jim.
For me, the greatest thing, we didn't really have although Charlie said the first album where we sat with acoustic guitar and we worked things out, once we'd formed the band, and you know, the other guys brought so much to it as well. Mick McNeil on keyboards.
Oh, incredible.
Derek Forbes bass lines. My job, it was more songs came out of jams, and all they wanted to do was play all night and all day, and every time you went in, Charlie would have a new pedal, or Mick would have a new sequencer or something, and plug it in, let's go. And my job would be just to I used to record everything on this huge ghetto blasters, as they used to call them, and I would take little notes like 22 minutes in. I think it's a chord change.
Yes.
And I would just feel myself, God, that's mind blowing, that bit. So I'd make these notes, and when it ended, maybe pull the guys, check this bit. And
you were pre-producing.
Yeah.
I was kind of pre-arranging.
Yeah.
And I just, my memory is we had so many songs at that time that came out that way. And the great thing was, the way they all worked is such atmosphere as well. I was never short of pictures it put pictures in my mind. Not only did it move you, it was such a great, and we would be loud and we'd just play all night and all day, and at the end, you know, I would go away with this thing and then come back the next day and say it's called Love Song. and it would be, you know, when I look at it now, it was kind of definitely art rock. It was almost like mosaic. Sometimes it would be the picture would be a bit like impressionist paintings. It would sometimes be really blurred, and sometimes a song like, say, The American would just be there. So it was old school. It was jamming.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cosmic jamming.
Yes, of course. And then, so I'm putting a pin in the timeline now to 1982 and the game changer of New Gold Dream. And there are so many songs that we could cherry pick here. But let's talk about your first hit, which was Promised You a Miracle.
Yes.
Your first proper hit, because you were, before that,
Yeah.
as the documentary said, kids like me were listening to you on John Peel,
Yeah.
and in the Boy Club, in the Kit Kat Club in London, and the Camden Palace.
Yeah.
But then suddenly you were on daytime radio with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Promise You a Miracle was recorded way in advance of that album, New Gold Dream. It was kind of quite a while before the album came out. And it was a kind of a, you know, again, like it was pretty funky for its time, you know, in a sort of a modern romantic, you know, new romantic way.
Oh, you should have seen me dancing, Charlie, like a loon.
Well, we should see Jim dancing.
Still like a loon.
Jim never wants to do it the way it sounded on the record.
The thing was, that year, there was something about that year. I always think, you know, how different decades, different epochs, you don't get to 1980 and okay, the decade began. It's usually a couple of years in where the art of that period comes to the forefront. I just remember that year we'd gone down to play in Australia, and Love Song, we come back with a gold album. Love Song, of all things, which hadn't been a hit anywhere, was a hit in Australia. And although it might be an exaggeration to say there was Beatlemania, it was pretty over the top, the reaction. And I thought maybe we can be a pop band as well. I started to, you know, think about that, and then we think about that year. I remember thinking it was hearing the most unlikely bands having pop hits. Human League came from this cold industrial Sheffield Cabaret Voltaire, and there they were on top of the pops. Our friends in Scotland, Billy Mackenzie with you know, Echo and the Bunnymen were having hits. The Cure were starting to, maybe we can, and I think when you start to, you know, if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
And before we knew it, with this great riff, and the title of the documentary is also taken from the coda or the chorus in that song, Everything Is Possible. It felt like that. It felt game on here, and I think the song kind of sums that up.
And then we come now to 1984, and your sound then is you're just expanding like a universe. And we come to Sparkle in the Rain. and to Waterfront. And never has a more epic song than Waterfront, I think, ever been written. Certainly at that, at that point in time.
Pretty over the top. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Let's talk about
the full booner.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. There's a lovely scene in the documentary actually when you're at the docks in Clydeside. So talk me through that song.
Well, the thing was, I think Mel, our drummer who joined in the previous album, New Gold Dream.
Mel Gaynor, yeah.
Yeah, well, Mel, big bombastic drummer. And we had this bass pulse that Derek, the bass player, had came across by accident on an amplifier that he had sampled a little bit, and it played this sequence. And we started working around it. And we didn't intentionally, I don't think, until maybe when Jim came up with the lyrics and gave the title. But we never intentionally thought it was turned out to have this industrial landscape to it. But in retrospect, listening to it, it does sound like the government shipyards. It's quite industrial and big. And
I think the thing was the kind of growing success in New Gold Dream. One of the things it did was it took us into much bigger venues, and it even gave us a shot of playing the big festivals in Europe. And not that we would sit and strategize, but I do remember being at those festivals and think you need a special kind of sound to really play these things. You need a few songs that are really cinematic, landscape, punchy, reach into the back. And I think, as Charlie said, Mel Gaynor bringing all that muscle, and while you're starting to think about all those things, the song appears.
Now, you mentioned the word cinematic, which so we know where we're going to go next. But incidentally, that we come at that point in the documentary to the most shocking thing about the film, which was 68 bottles of Liebfraumilch in your bill for one recording session. I mean, one bottle of Liebfraumilch.
I thought you were talking about Charlie's bill this morning.
One bottle of Liebfraumilch would be too much, gentlemen, but you went through 68 in one. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry about that, but the only acceptable place for a Liebfraumilch is after a curry. During a curry, I have to say. So now we come to 1985 and to Once Upon a Time, and to the song that kind of ended up defining you, which people still to this day assume is a Simple Minds song, but which a music spod like me always knew was a Keith Forsey song. Yeah. And so my first question is, because I knew Keith as, not personally, but as Billy Idol's producer, because I avidly read every sleeve note of every record.
Wow.
So how come Billy Idol didn't get that song?
Well, you see, there's all these... We can't get Keith to tell the truth. Or we can't even get him not tell the truth, clarify.
Yeah.
But Billy actually has done a version of it since. Did you know that?
No.
It sounds good.
Not as good as yours, though.
Of course not. The thing was, at the time, again, Simple Minds had broken through kind of everywhere, apart from the States, where we'd got kind of close, but record company hadn't spent the big bucks. You need the big bucks in America spent on promotion. And but they had come to us and they'd said, look, next thing you do, we're going to be there. And we were writing songs like Alive and Kicking and all this stuff. But they said there'd be something good in the meantime. It would help tee things up for the next phase. There's this movie, Breakfast Club, John Hughes, and these teenage movies, and John really wants you to do the song for the movie. Great. And we're going to send you the song. Oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah, of course. And you didn't like it.
We do our own songs. Well, here's the thing. Anyone can go on now, online now, and listen to the demo. The song's pretty good, but the demo, Keith is singing, and he sings in this Richard Butler voice. I like the psychedelic
verse.
But it sounded a bit like them, but the music all sounded a wee bit generic and a bit flat. And we were doing things like Alive and Kicking and stuff, and we thought, we're better than this. But when you listen, you will hear the song. It's not taken away from Keith's work, but it didn't have the big intro, and it didn't have the breakdown and the la-la-las, and more importantly, it didn't have the sound and the spirit and the joy of Simple Minds.
And it didn't have Mel. because
didn't
you
have
mentioned Mel coming into the band. Now, that for me, that's the greatest drum fill of all time.
Everyone does it, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. I can air drum it right now with two pyros, and
Yeah.
you know, like it's just absolutely the greatest. And when my son was learning drums, my most joyful moment was hearing him through the wall.
Great.
Actually, because he couldn't actually properly get it, but he pretty much I could hear him. I knew he was
only
doing
got it that one time.
Yeah, he got it. When he nailed that, I was just like, oh my God, my work as a father is over. He's nailed the drum fill. And don't you forget about me. But we've got to move on, and because that was Keith's song, and you made it your own, and it broke America for you, and it opened all the doors, and it changed your life.
Yeah.
But I want to talk more about your song on that same record, which is Alive and Kicking, because what a song that is.
Yeah, Alive and Kicking. Well, we were working with Jimmy Iovine, you know, and Jimmy was always a great song guy, and he really pushed us with Alive and Kicking, Jim, didn't he? It was like
you don't got no songs. He was breaking your balls, as they say.
He wouldn't.
He was terrifying. I mean, it was like having a school teacher, wasn't it?
Yeah,
every day, where's the homework?
Yeah.
Have you improved this?
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. How are you going to make it great?
Yeah, we need another bit. We need another bit. We need another section.
But that was a heartwarming bit in the documentary when he admitted what a great song that is.
Yeah.
that must have been nice for you.
And the great opening line.
Well, there was a great thing so I'd done this guide vocal, and the words weren't quite fully formed, and then I thought I'll take them away and work on them, and I'll make them really good and all that. So I go in and I changed the opening. The opening line is "You turn me on." So I go in and I can't remember what I said instead. But Jimmy was like, "Hey, stop. Where's you turn me on?" And I'm not doing that anymore. What do you mean you're not doing it? You can't start a song, "You turn me on." I mean, what am I, Lionel Rich? What am I, Marvin Gaye? I mean, it's just not gonna. And he said, "Oh well, there goes my house." You know, I was just, this house is going to buy, you know, he went in, this song's going to buy us all houses, and there goes the swimming pool, Charlie. Your swimming pool's gone and all that.
That's hilarious.
And then the thing he said, his wife at the time, Vicky, had this friend who shall remain nameless, and I had a bit of a soft spot for her, to say the least. And he said, let's just call her Alice. That's Alice's favourite bit. You know, I played her the demo, and Alice is just freaking out. She said, she's got the hots for you hearing that song. So there was a bit of psychological, but anyway, we went with it, and now it just sounds perfect for the song. But you know, these are all the things you go through. Charlie and I, we looking at back, such fond times. You know, I mean, the one thing we did, there was a conscious, people said, "Oh, you tried to break America," as though it was that easy. We wanted to go to New York. We wanted to work with Jimmy Iovine. Bowie had done Let's Dance. Bob Clearmountain had done Roxy Music. We wanted to work with these guys. Yes. We wanted to, can we do it? Lo and behold, it worked.
And Clearmountain was the man to make you hi-fi, to make everything glisten with such beauty. Yeah, incredible, right? So you were now, you know, the most epic sounding band on planet Earth at this point. And so now... And then we get to an sort of interesting point in your career, because you must have then, your lives changed, and there's so much going on. But you'd always had this cycle of an album coming out almost every year, or every 2 years. You'd always have, you know, you were very prolific. But the cycle then ended. 1989, street fighting years. That you have this backdrop of Thatcherism, of real depression, rather like now, and you know, Nelson Mandela's early days. You know, you doing a big Nelson Mandela gig, and then suddenly a really very profound change of gear for Belfast Child.
Yes.
So talk me through Belfast Child.
Jim.
Well, the thing about then, we've been very lucky in our career, because I think we worked with some of the star producers of the time. You know, if you think, you mentioned John Leckie earlier, Steve Lillywhite at the time was a huge. Then we worked with Jimmy, legendary, and then finally, some would say the guy who typified the sound of the 80s, Trevor Horn himself. And the thing about it was such a great thing for us to work with Trevor, but when I think about it now, it was perhaps the worst time, in the sense, the way I see it, Charlie might be different. We're about 10 years in, and I think we've never been one to get bored easily, but I think we were getting bored with our own sound. So we were looking for someone that would augment that and bring their thing. Trevor Horn, God, has he got a thing?
Yeah.
Lo and behold, turns out Trevor was bored with his thing as well. So he's kind of looking at us going, where's the thing? And we're like, well, I don't really want to do that thing, but where's your, well, I don't want to do that thing. I'm working with you because I don't want to do it. So so I always look in that record, I've mixed emotions, but the one thing we can't deny, this song that came out of Belfast Child, which Trevor, by this time we had our own place to work in Scotland, a beautiful Highland scenery and all that, and Trevor was so keen on us working on a Celtic song, and my original thing was Over My Dead Body. I never liked any of that music or any of that kind of stuff, but you know, he was really pushing for it, and one of these magical things, one night we came in and it was our bass player at the time, John Giblin, was playing this, turns out, I didn't know, but turns out to be this Irish air called She Moved Through the Fair. And at the time, we were trying to write songs based on, you know, we're looking at the world around us, and Belfast was in the news a lot, and it became, we gave it a go, and it was the most unlikely hit single out, but it gave us our only #1 in Britain.
Wow, is that right? Gosh, that's a stat, isn't it? So rattling, we've got to land the jet.
Yeah.
So 1991 we're at now, and to real life.
Yeah.
And the song that we've got to pull out of this is Let There Be Love. So talk me through that.
Wow, well, you know, it's funny, in the 90s where a lot of the dance music that was coming through, you know, there was a kind of hip-hop rhythm in there that we had sort of built this track on. So it had a kind of funny, shuffly, you know, groove. And, you know, at the time, I mean, I think when we were working on that album, Jim, we had so many different ideas running at the same time. But we had this melody, and I think Jim really championed it. Jim really felt, oh, that's really sticking out, you know. And I was always a little bit on the fence about it, but Jim...
Charlie's modest. He was on fire. He'd like four or five great songs right off the bat at the time. I mean, because we always think of Charlie as a guitar player. He is, but he's every bit as much as a piano player, keyboard player, and he really particularly started back then. And it's still a song that Charlie and I still underestimate that song. When I say underestimate, we like it, but it's one of these songs that when you play it in front of an audience, it really... It shows us something about it that we were unaware about.
Yes.
And it's a great song to have in the set.
Yeah. Here. Now, this bookends what fans would call the golden era of Simple Minds. But of course, you had so many albums since, which we don't have time to go into. But I just want to finish in the best place, which is in the here and now. And to your last record, I'm going to bring things right up to 2022. I really want to play a new song of yours. And the song that I want to play is Solstice Kiss, because it's so Scottish. It could be in a love scene in Braveheart, the intro to that. And it, I think, defines everything that's wonderful about Simple Minds. Epic and sensationally Scottish.
Wow.
Well, you know what? We haven't played that one live yet,
Nope.
but we're about to play it live because in the next few weeks, well, actually, we start our tour in January in New Zealand, and it's going to find its place in the set. And I'm particularly looking forward to hearing the intro that you mentioned there and the evocative sound.
What a way to start.
What a way to start, yeah. I mean, that was one where Charlie, in the recent years, he quite often, for me, seals the deal last minute with coming in with a killer line. And I'm really looking forward to playing that live.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I look forward to seeing it. Gentlemen, your incredible music aside, the thing that impressed me the most when I got to the end of the film, pushing past your impeccable Italian, your impeccable fluent Italian, by the way.
Charlie speaks better.
It really, absolutely incredible. What the thing that impressed me and warmed my heart most was you two your relationship, this brotherhood that you have, is the glue that's kept one of the greatest bands ever together.
That's
and
nice.
it must have been a lovely thing to look back. Oh my God, we did all that. And
We're the
as
worst
brothers,
at looking. We're the worst at looking back.
No, we're the worst at looking back.
I mean, obviously the documentary, but Charlie and I put this off for the longest time, just because we're just not that great at looking back. Under pressure, we'll do it, but it doesn't come natural to us. And I think, but I agree with you looking back, and because we, might be the time and the place we were brought up. It's a bit macho and all that. We don't really put our arms right, you're my mate and all that stuff. We don't really.
Have you never told each other that you love each other?
We have.
Maybe after 26
after
26 bottles of Blue Nun.
Come on, I want you to tell him right now.
After 28 bottles of what's it called again?
Liebfraumilch. That can be arranged.
It'd be more like, it was doing it, we can let I love you, yeah, okay. We're ready to go, yeah.
Gentlemen, we're going to get thrown out. I could talk to you all day and all night, but we've got to get thrown out of the studio.
You're a good man, you're very kind.
Well, love you guys, and and I love how it ends with when the documentary's over. They went back to work to record their 20th album and their biggest tour in years.
Yeah, halfway through that record as we speak.
More power to your elbows. Will you
very much.
continue being sensationally Scottish and wonderfully inspiring?
Thank you, Ed.